Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. May peace be upon you. This is Edward Ahmed Mitchell, the Deputy Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, welcoming you to today's episode of CAIR on Air. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope all of you are doing well and staying safe. Inshallah, today we're going to be discussing some good news, some positive news that came out of difficult news, as often happens. We're going to be discussing an incident in Kentucky impacting a Muslim medical doctor who experienced a very unfortunate violation of her civil rights or religious freedom. But thankfully, alhamdulillah, CAIR and an attorney who you all are going to recognize were able to get this situation resolved for her and hopefully set a precedent that will help protect many other Muslim women and other people of faith into the future, inshallah. So today, let's dive in, and our special guest, get excited, is the former National Board Chair of CAIR, Attorney Rula Alouche. Let's bring her on.
Assalamu alaikum, Edward.
Alhamdulillah.
Welcome. How are you?
Good, alhamdulillah. Good to see you. How are you doing?
Good, alhamdulillah. It's good to be back with the CAIR team.
Yes, absolutely. Good to have you here, Rula. So, alhamdulillah, Rula, obviously, many of you who are watching, Rula was our board chair for many years. She's now our board chair emeritus, still serving on our emeritus board and still contributing her expertise and values to the organization. And alhamdulillah, this was, I think, a great opportunity for us to work together again, Rula, and to see you in action as an attorney. And Rula, remind us now, what firm are you at right now? Tell us a bit about your day life as an attorney.
Yeah, thank you. The day job has always been in private practice. I'm licensed in Kentucky and Ohio, and I'm currently at Brooker Graydon, based in downtown Cincinnati. We've got presence in Columbus, Cleveland, and down into northern Kentucky as well.
Absolutely. Great. Alhamdulillah. Great work that you've been doing for that firm. And so let's dive into this particular case. So obviously, what we're talking about here is a Muslim doctor in Kentucky whose civil rights and religious freedom were violated. Just tell us the story, Rula, of what happened to your client.
Yeah, sure. So Monday last week, Monday night, after kind of a long night shift at the University of Kentucky as a doctor working at UK, my client was pulled over for not having her headlights on, allegedly. I mean, that's what we understand the reason to have been. Yes, I like the eye roll, Edward, because many of us have shared the thought of, like, really, you pull someone over for that? Okay. And of course, she was, wearing hijab as that at that beginning stage of the incident. And when she was pulled over by the police officer, despite the alleged reason being the headlights, apparently, tags, et cetera, were run, and her vehicle was registered in 2023, 2022, it's always been registered. There was a period of time where it had lapsed during the pandemic where, many of us were taking measures to be safe. And, there were certain even delays given in order to protect people and the whole stay home orders and those types of things. So she didn't, at one point, there had been a lapse in registration. She learned about it within a few days of learning about it, corrected that matter, the fact that it had lapsed. And there was a court date related to that. Her understanding was you pay the registration, get it up to date, no need to appear at court. That was a misunderstanding that led to when the officer who pulled her over last week noted that there was a bench warrant based on that incident. And so really it was it's minor matters that were based on misunderstandings. I think one of the things that unfortunately this matter has shown us, and we've seen it in many other cases as well, is the necessity for law enforcement to be able to properly communicate with individuals. And where there's any type of language barrier or any type of communication barrier, it can lead to really, big life implications for the individuals involved. And that's one of many things that we've learned in this occasion and others that law enforcement needs to do a better job on.
Right. And, Rula, as a former prosecutor, one of the things that I've seen over and over again is people being confused, even people who are born here and familiar with the system, thinking, oh, okay, I had a headlight out, a tag, paid it, and I'm good. But certain charges, you actually have to physically show up in court in many jurisdictions to show that you have, for example, re-registered your car or what have you. And people don't realize that if they miss that, then there's a warrant for your arrest. And if the police run into you, they will take you away. So, yeah. Good point there that, people need to understand the system, and law enforcement needs to make sure people understand the system. And hopefully we can think of ways to address minor issues like this without involving jail visits.
Yes, agreed.
Yes, but moving on to the even bigger issue that arose. So my understanding, Rule, is that part of the incident was uneventful. As distressing as it was, taken into custody. At that point, I believe not forced to do anything that would compromise her faith at that point. But then she was taken to the detention center, the Fayette County Detention Center, in Lexington. What happened next?
Yeah, and Edward, I actually, well, no, I'm actually in Lexington right now. I'm visiting at my parents' house. I'm a University of Kentucky grad, as you and many others know, because I proudly declare myself a Wildcat all the time. But right, she was taken to the Fayette County Detention Center, just down the road from where I am right now. And upon entering that booking process, she was asked by someone to remove her hijab in order to take a photo. She did the right thing, which you're supposed to do, which is to assert her religious right to say, I need to keep my hijab on. Is there somewhere private? Is there some type of accommodation that can be made so that I'm not removing my hijab in public around, um, you know, individuals that are outside my family, et cetera. Just it's my religious belief to keep this on in public. And she was taken into a room that was not private by any means because it had windows on the wall area or door area. I'm not exactly sure, but there were windows that face into the room. So when she was asked then to remove her hijab, people could still see her. She's somebody who, for her, the covering of the hair, her religious practice of wearing hijab is so important to her. She actually bent over um, so that she was trying not to be visible. She was trying to have the top part of her body not visible to the individuals that were outside that could see through that window, to the point where her back started hurting her. And it was long enough that she was still then in this room without her hijab on. So then she was able to kind of use her dress to cover her hair so that she could sit upright to relieve the back pain that she was experiencing because of being in that position, which all of this, she never, should have had to experience that. As we've seen in this instance and in too many other occasions across the country, people, the religious rights need to be accommodated, even in instances where people are entering a booking process at jail.
Right, right. And religious freedom is not in at the walls of a prison.
Right,
Um,
right.
so, what happened today? So she's forced to remove the hijab in view of people who are not her family, people, men of the people of the opposite sex. How did this impact her personally? I mean, obviously, as Muslims, we know that you're not blamed for what you can't control, but obviously, we still want to try to maintain the rules and the modesty that we all follow in different ways. So, how did this impact her rule?
Yeah, of course. I think in her own words, she felt very terrorized, traumatized, abused by the police in this instance, by that entire process from being pulled over to the experience at the booking at the Fayette County Detention Center. And, I should note a couple things here. So we're not sharing her identity for a reason. It's her own choice not to. And I think her lack of comfort in sharing her name is reflective of the type of trauma that she experienced and just how much this incident has impacted her as a Muslim woman in this country. The other thing I would point is that, this is a person who has told me on a couple of occasions now in talking that this is so traumatic because she is an immigrant to this country and, always had the understanding of our religious freedoms and our respect for people's opinions and for people to be free to practice as they choose. And that, that was something that was important to her as a person coming into the US and coming to live in Lexington, Kentucky to work at the university. So it's really impacted her in a number of ways.
So then, Rula, after this happened, you agreed to represent her. You alerted us at CAIR to it. Alhamdulillah, this is what CAIR does, as you well know, as our former board chair. So, alhamdulillah, we were able to pursue a dual track where CAIR was able to reach out to the detention facility and the chief of police to complain about this incident and ask them to address the clear either violation of their policies, if they had a policy, or to establish a policy that protects the right of people to maintain their religious headgear, even if they're being detained. And then simultaneously, you, I think, represented her in court. So at that point, what happened next? I understand you got some good
Yeah, it
news
was
in the court system, and we got some good news as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, it's wonderful. So, unfortunately, when someone's in a position like this, what's most important is for them to share and communicate the concern, the issue, the challenge that they experience. And that can be very difficult for someone in this situation to do. Someone who's an immigrant, concerned about immigration status, that's something that often follows incidents like this. But she was, aware that her rights had been violated, and that was an error and should not have happened. So she herself initially wrote out a statement that she circulated to some colleagues within the UK healthcare system and, other people in the community that she knew. So I started to then receive messages as somebody who is from this community and knew some of the individuals who were receiving those messages, that message from her. It was kind of making its rounds within some small circles, but she was importantly getting the message out of this experience that she had as a Muslim in the Lexington community. And so I was able to connect with her relatively quickly after that statement came out, and spoke with her. It was funny because as I was speaking with her, I thought, well, I know some people that I could call. And of course, understanding that CAIR doesn't necessarily handle the criminal aspect of things. And unfortunately, she should never have been put in a situation where she was dealing with a court criminal matter. But unfortunately, as you noted, our system has a number of flaws, and this is an area of opportunity for improvement. But in this instance, she did need assistance there, so I was able to help her in that way, and agree to take that on. And also, there's ongoing civil rights issues that we'll deal with for her with her case, but the immediate need was also advocacy with UK, the detention center, and then any other entities that we uncovered as relevant. So alhamdulillah, as you know, Edward, I've always been such a supporter of CAIR, and I'm so grateful. We consider it that first line of defense for our community. So when this Muslim physician in Lexington, Kentucky had this issue, who do you call? And thankfully, I was able to be connected, and I knew who we should call. And alhamdulillah, it was the group of you, the team at National, and I know our chapters across the country, mashallah, are always responsive on these issues. So true to form, within, I don't even think a few minutes, it was probably less than that, I started to receive messages back from the team at CAIR National to respond and try to start addressing the issue. And if I'm not mistaken, within a few hours, there was a draft that we could potentially use, mashallah. And it was, personally wonderful to be back working with you all on the ground, so to speak, on an issue like this. But truly, in this case, I think that CAIR's leadership, CAIR's ability to advocate for her really made a difference, because it got the attention of the media, it got the attention of the institutions that were in place, that there is this national prominent civil rights organization that's responding to this issue. And so it was really important that we were able to collaborate, and that CAIR is there to help this woman. And then, that helps other people. So it helps people of other faith communities, and inshallah, it'll also help people across the country not have to deal with what she dealt with.
Right. Absolutely, inshallah. So, alhamdulillah. And so, thankfully, the criminal side of thing, I think, has been resolved. Alhamdulillah. Thanks
Yes.
for your work. And then on the other side of things, the detention center not only has responded to us, but also publicly said that what happened was wrong. That they need to establish a policy to ensure that people of faith can cover their hair, including Muslim women wearing hijab. And I'm happy to report the detention center actually even asked CAIR, can you give us policy recommendations, written proposals that we can adopt potentially, or to make sure this doesn't happen again. So that's the exact response you want to see from law enforcement, right? Is to acknowledge the problem and then work to address it, and to look to the experts for guidance about how to address it. Sometimes what you'll run into are agencies that are very stubborn, and you just have to sue them and to get something done, and that's never ideal. So at the least, alhamdulillah, we're happy to report that the jail seems to be intent on adopting some sort of policy to make sure this doesn't happen in the future. And that's a good thing. That's positive news. And as you said, hopefully this will not only help Muslim women, but also people of other faiths who might wear hair coverings, from Jewish men to Sikh men to even Jewish women, and even Catholic women, and others who might cover their hair or wear some other religious clothing item that they don't want to take off, especially in front of the opposite sex. So it's very important that this will not only help Muslims, but also people of faith in general, inshallah. Rula,
Yeah, inshallah, Edward.
yeah, yeah. Last question.
I want to know, if I could, Edward, just, it's important because, we have good news and it's wonderful, but there is still the experience that she went through. And of course, I'm speaking to you with permission, and she's happy to see that her courage in speaking out has led to, inshallah, what we're seeing is change. But of course that doesn't remedy her. And so we'll continue to consider all options for her to protect her rights as well.
Right, absolutely. Because the thing that law enforcement has to understand is when you make this mistake, it's always good to adopt a policy to make sure it doesn't happen in the future. But the damage has still been done, right?
Right.
And so there may need to be steps, various types of steps to address what was done to the person. I'm sure, Rula, that you will be handling that as needed, inshallah, in coordination
Yeah.
with her. Yeah, inshallah. So last question for you then, Rula. So alhamdulillah, we have seen sadly incidents like this happen in other states, but in many places it has resulted in change. From Los Angeles, New York, Maryland, even in Atlanta, we've seen, alhamdulillah, CAIR get involved in incidents like this, and then jails and prisons adopting policies to allow people of faith to wear their religious head coverings. Being in Kentucky, I think people might have the stereotype that it's a more difficult place for the Muslim community, but tell us a bit about the community there. My understanding, it's a pretty significant community, thriving, growing, deals with challenges like anyone else, but give some insight into the Kentucky Muslim community.
Yeah, it's a as you all the adjectives that you just described. It was a wonderful place to grow up, and most of my family is still in Lexington and surrounding areas in Kentucky, and members of the community in a number of ways. Alhamdulillah, we've been able to see people grow in leadership in our community within kind of the Muslim community in Kentucky, but also just externally dealing with issues that impact everyone in our communities. And so it's a strong community. It's a community that's close knit. Mashallah, it's very diverse. People have a lot of stereotypes and misconceptions about my old Kentucky home, but it's been a beautiful place for me and my family, and many others. And I think a number of us, especially with the ties to the university, were very disturbed by this incident happening. And I am glad to see that there was a response that happened quickly, and that's, I think, reflective of the fact that these issues don't just occur um, in silos. This is happening, as you noted, across the country, and it isn't just East or West Coast places where people will react and take things seriously. And that's a testament, I think, to the leadership that the community here has shown, and being connected to leaders within the university, law enforcement, and other places as well, to ensure that their rights are protected.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have
Yeah.
those connections locally between the masajid and other Muslim community leaders, with your local government officials, agencies, etc., and that open line of communication makes it much easier to hopefully resolve this. And hopefully, the leaders of these institutions are already familiar with the Muslim community, and so they can quickly recognize, oh, we messed up. Um, Ideally, inshallah. So
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
absolutely. Rule, I'm going to thank you for your time. Hamza, it's great to have you back. It was great to work with you on an actual case, mashallah, not just management stuff, but on a case. Alhamdulillah, we appreciate you. May Allah reward you for your efforts, and please send our regards to the doctor. And we look forward to hearing any additional updates about this case that you may end up sharing with the community. But thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Edward. Jazakallah khair to you and the team. It wouldn't have come out with this result without CAIR.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair to all of you.
Absolutely. All
Good to be
praise.
back with you.
Yes, thank you, Rula. Thank you. And thank you all for watching today's episode of Care on Air. We really appreciate it. Inshallah, we will see you next time. Until then, assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you.